leads up to the Atomium, but obviously it hasn't been used for a while. Whether they reopen it at showtime or not, we just don't know. Well, it certainly looks as though there's some form of work going on here. At this point the overhead stops and there's new track work in the foreground, so obviously it's some form of temporary closure for improvement. Looking back the other way, there appears to be a mouth of a double track tunnel. That's where we've just come up. And of course this is the famous Atomium. Up the top is the observation dome. There's the front of it going around the corner. That's the driver up the other end. Have been designed, by the way, for a conversion eventually to lightweight electric trains. In fact, if we find the other platform here, we'll be able to go and see what they look like. In 1975 this was just a tram line. There goes the vintage tour. Not too worried about riding it. The line just dives underground for a couple of hundred yards to transfer passengers to the metro station, which used to be the tram line. These 5000s were in regular service in 1975. No wonder they moved, they've got 4 65 horsepower motors. Just left the depot and all of a sudden the tram went dead, and within seconds he was on the radio. Hasn't tried to fix anything. Looks like everyone's jumping off. If they can get the doors open. Well, I didn't think he looked very hard. When I hopped off, the pantograph was a couple of inches below the wire, and there's a rope that comes down into the cab with a spring-loaded gizzo on it, like a trolley retriever, and I gather the rope just got tangled a bit, pull the panto off the wire, and thus he was isolated. A mechanic turned up from nowhere in a matter of 2 or so minutes after he called on the radio. Came a bit too soon. This is the Barneek terminus Brussels. Looks like he's got a triangle here. I think he actually waited while I crossed the paddock. This is the view outside Midi station. Tram on the right's terminating. The one on the left's going around the corner to the left. Today is officially a working day, although yesterday was Sunday and tomorrow is a public holiday, so a few people are taking the extra day off. Good place for line breaker noises too. traction motor armature covered in mud on one of those trailers. This goes. Compulsory stop. Accelerate a bit. Tracks just here. '94 terminus. The driver wanted to be out of the sun, so he's tucked his tram amongst those bushes there in the turning loop. It barely squeezes through. Grand Union, although it's very spread out. That's our tram again, and our next tram I think is coming around the corner up there. This is on line 90, and we dive underground for a while because of the disruption on the surface.
C'est un ancien tunnel pour voitures qui a été transformé en tunnel pour tram ici.
It was a tunnel for cars. Les voitures sur cet endroit ici?
Oui, oui.
Yeah, they took half the tunnel off the cars and made it into a tram tunnel. That sounds like a good idea. Fairly standard type tunnel stop. Seems to be at a terminus together, with the layover time a little in excess of the frequency. These 7900s are in fact 2 PCCs in multiple units sharing the one body. Very nice cars. This is one of the terminuses near the Atomium. Quite an impressive track layout, probably a bit like Randwick Workshops. Oh, sorry, Randwick Racecourse. It's my friend William Bergiert, who's involved in the Shallow Museum. A bit shy, I think. Showing me around Brussels for the day. If only we had layovers like that in Melbourne. The previous terminus wasn't far from the Atomium and exhibition grounds, and this is another one. But since the opening of the metro just here on the left, this portion of the line, the last kilometre or so, is only used on special occasions. The double track was cut back to single to allow the motorists to park.
Donc je ne suis plus adossé près, mais enfin.
Non mais c'est rare d'entendre des gens qui disent de savoir qu'il y a deux contrôleurs et que pourquoi il y a un seul rail, etc. C'est un compliment, hein, c'est pas un reproche.
Oui, heureusement.
I feel quite at home here. There's lots of abandoned track around Brussels, including this nice bit of gauntlet track, and even the line of joins at that intersection is going to be cut back soon, within a couple of years anyway. Sometimes that's for metro construction, other times the reasons seem to be rather poor. This is portion to be closed. One line goes around the church each way. This line's okay, it's a 92. And that's the present terminus, and the line's been cut back here, but possibly this time for a good reason, because it's going to be completely relayed, the road widened and everything else. The only thing is it's taken 3 years so far to get to the stage of a few minor demolitions, so it could be a little while yet before it's running again. Just another triangle. We're in this morning. I suppose now the trams here, there'll be I suppose now I'm here with the camera, there'll be track brakes. So much for the rules. Funny how things suddenly hit you. I'm sure that's the same type of engine as you see all over East Germany, so it was probably made in one of the communist countries. Couldn't find a builder's plate on this one though, unfortunately. About 8:30 in the evening, just behind me and over to the left there's an entrance to a metro station where two routes branch apart. One of the two routes is closed tonight because they're grinding the rails, and normally two tram routes connect with the metro at the next station just up on the top of the hill there somewhere. That station is on the closed branch, so they're extending the trams that normally terminate up there down to this point here, one station further, to avoid people having to change from a tram to a bus for one station to get to the metro again. And the track they're running over is, as from that junction there, is the last remaining remnants of the Route 62, which was closed quite some time ago. We've installed a new second-hand crossover up behind me somewhere, and that's where it'll be shunting. So in a moment the tram will be running over closed track. Looking into the setting sun, unfortunately. There was an inspector's car, that little van there. That's a temporary tram stop sign, the bottom one, for the two services that are extended. Notice there that they go to 2,500 hours, which is what they do in Melbourne, which I thought was rather odd. It lets people know that the end of that day's service, not the next day's service. It's only a moment later and the first 44 has arrived, so we'll be coming down here in a moment too. I suppose there's general confusion amongst the peasants. It was actually the museum that wanted them to keep this bit of track and put a crossover down here for them to use, but it's come in handy for the operational service in this instant anyway. One's coming out of the shunting neck. And they didn't spend much time cleaning the tracks, that's for sure. It's like a fan trip, isn't it? Gunzels everywhere. Now the fellow on the left, I believe, is one of the bosses in charge of the project. That one in the middle of the picture. Into the rail, and that's where the 62 used to go once upon a time. Unless anything else like spectacular happens, I think we'll call it quits with this at the moment. Other end of the line, you might be able to see the red and white flags there. That's to remind drivers not to go into the tunnel mouth. So again, the automatic points are still there, working. This little bit of track is used daily by maybe about 10 cars for depot access purposes. The 39 here is in the new colours for the Brussels area. All he has to do is ring his bell and race across, they'll stop for him. At variance with other places, Brussels has, I think they've actually converted quite a few of their trams to double-ended from single-ended, and of course this makes operations like tonight much easier. Now it's not the same tram, it's the next one just a bit further around the corner. Now Lane has explained that the 7.7s were originally built as 7.5s. That's when they were single-ended. When they were made double-ended cars, they were numbered 7.7. The 7.8s were built as double-ended cars, and the 7.7s and 7.8s are now the same type of car, just their history was different. The 7.9s were built as double-ended cars in the first place.